We have all these phony investigations going on collusion with the Russians, to the point where we're all nauseous. We're sick and tired of it. It was a fig leaf, a phony straw man in order to try and take down the President of the United States. We all know this. If anybody colludes with the Russians, it's the Democrat Party. They used to collude with the old Soviet Union. The Lion of the Senate, Ted Kennedy. He colluded with the Soviet Union directly. They always did. They tried to protect Alger Hiss. He was a spy for the Soviet Union. So we know the history of the Democrat Party. But John Kerry now is colluding with Iran, our enemy. The administration has taken a position different than his. And I want to know what we're going to do about it. I'll be right back. The Hillary Clinton campaign and the Democrats actually collude with the Russians. Of this, there is no doubt. John Kerry is colluding with the Iranians. Of this, there is no doubt. He's confessed. The Obama administration uses the instrumentalities of law enforcement and the intelligence agencies to interfere in the last election. Of this, there is no question. The Obama administration washes funds through the State Department to interfere in the election in Israel to try and topple Netanyahu. Of this, there's no question. And there's no special counsel. None. None. Each and every one of these, in and of themselves, a colossal scandal. Nothing. We have this story in the Washington Free Beacon, an excellent site. And in this story, they cite an interview by my friend Hugh Hewitt, who actually secured John Kerry as a guest. And it's a great piece by a great reporter, Adam Credo. Former Secretary of State John Kerry disclosed that he's been conducting rogue diplomacy with top Iranian officials to salvage the landmark nuclear deal and push the Islamic Republic to negotiate its contested missile program, according to recent remarks. Now, this is shocking. After the hurricane news, which is worthy news, substantive news, important information to convey to the American people, and particularly those in these areas, this should be story number 2 today. This. Kerry, in an interview with radio host Hugh Hewitt to promote his new book, said that he has met with Iranian former minister Javad Zarif, the former secretary's one-time negotiating partner, 3 or 4 times in recent months, behind the Trump administration's back. I think I've seen him 3 or 4 times, Kerry said, adding that he has been conducting sensitive diplomacy without the current administration's authorization. Kerry said he has criticized the current administration in these discussions, chiding it for not pursuing negotiations from Iran despite the country's fevered rhetoric about the U.S. Kerry's comments are in line with previous reporting on his behind-the-scenes attempts to save the nuclear deal and ensure that Iran continues receiving billions in cash windfalls. These payments were brought to a halt by the Trump administration when it abandoned the nuclear agreement and reimposed harsh sanctions on Iran that have nearly toppled its economy and sparked a popular revolution. John Kerry is Benedict Arnold. That's what he is. He's Benedict Arnold. He did it during the Vietnam War, and he's doing it again. Kerry said he met Zarif in Norway, Munich, and other international forums. As Iran continues to plot terror attacks across the globe and transport weapons to regional hotspots in Syria and Yemen, Kerry has tried to help Zarif preserve the nuclear agreement with European nations. So we have a rogue shadow government here, ladies and gentlemen. A rogue shadow government. Just as Kerry's former colleague from Massachusetts, Ted Kennedy, worked closely with the Soviet regime against Ronald Reagan. Kerry is working closely with the Iranian regime against President Trump and the United States of America. What I've done is try to elicit from him, Zarif, what Iran might be willing to do to change the dynamic of the Middle East for the better, Kerry said. Now, he's a private citizen. How does one resolve Yemen? What do you do to try and get peace in Syria? Those are the things that really are preoccupying him, because those are the impediments to Iran's ability to convince people it's ready to embrace something different. Kerry said he has offered blunt talk to Zarif in order to push the regime to accept restrictions on its foreign interventionism. I've been very blunt to Foreign Minister Zarif. I told him, look, you guys need to recognize the world does not appreciate what's happening with missiles, what's happening with Hezbollah, what's happening with Yemen. You're supporting an ongoing struggle there. What an idiot. Like they don't know that? They're terrorists. What an idiot. Iran has said they're prepared to negotiate and resolve these issues, but the Trump administration's taken a very different tack, says Kerry. Criticizing the current White House, Kerry lamented that it appears right now as if the administration is hell-bent to pursue a regime change strategy in Iran that would bring the economy down and try to isolate it further. Never known for being the brightest bulb in the chandelier. The former Secretary of State cautioned the current administration, saying the United States historically has not had a great record in regime change strategies, number one. Number two, that makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for any Iranian leader to sit down and negotiate anything, because they're not going to do it in a capitulatory situation. Iranian leaders have said multiple times in recent months they will not take any meetings with Trump or his administration. So here is John Kerry giving testimony against himself. Sally Yates, the former Deputy Attorney General of the United States, was waving around the Logan Act, which has never been used successfully and rarely been used since its earliest times, against private citizens who interfere in diplomacy and American foreign policy. Yet they waved it around when it came to Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. It was a pretext that the United States Department of Justice under Barack Obama used to try and set up General Flynn. In fact, Sally Yates raised it with the FBI director. Sally Yates raised it a lot, the Logan Act, knowing it had never been successfully used and had rarely been used since it was instituted. And yet when it comes to John Kerry, nobody mentions it in the media. When it comes to collusion with an enemy, and undermining a sitting administration, John Kerry has done exactly that. He's give aid and comfort to the enemy. And I have to wonder, will there be a FISA warrant issued to surveil him now? To see what other activities he's been involved in, to see the extent to which he will continue his rogue diplomacy with the Iranian regime as he undermines our commander-in-chief. Would a FISA court judge, quick to issue a warrant against Carter Page and Trump World, will they be quick to issue a warrant to surveil John Kerry, who should be surveilled now? Don't you think? I mean, there's certainly enough information to justify it, including his own unwitting confession. Nobody ever said he's the brightest person in the world. In fact, he's one of the dumbest. Then John Kerry, hawking a book, is on with Dana Perino on Fox. Let's hear how that went. Cut 12, go.
How many times since you left office have you met with the Iranians or Iranian representatives?
A few times, 2 or 3 times.
And is that
now let's stop there. 2 or 3 times. Did he not tell Hugh Hewitt 3 or 4 times, Mr. Producer? Wouldn't you know how many times you've met with a surrogate for the Iranian terrorist regime? That's just it's just a simple point. Go ahead.
About the Iran nuclear deal?
Well, it's to talk to them. No, it's to talk to them more importantly about their behavior and what are the ways forward in order to try to redefine a security arrangement for the region that works for everybody.
Yeah, but you're not an official of the United States government. The officials in the United States government have taken a position. It's not your position. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is why Barack Obama is hell-bent on seeing Donald Trump impeached and bogged down in investigations and subpoenas by his own party. What the Obama administration did in the lead-up to the election and during the election to try and sabotage the Trump candidacy, and what its surrogates are doing now, absolutely unprecedented. Unprecedented, as far as I know, in American history. Let's go back to Benedict Arnold, John Kerry. Go ahead.
Iran is going to continue to meddle in Yemen or to meddle in other countries, Saudi Arabia, elsewhere,
Hezbollah.
or fund Hezbollah, or mess around with Syria, or be involved in Iraq. We have legitimate concerns. What people don't realize is, even in the agreement that we made with Iran with respect to their nuclear weapon, we kept the sanctions on missiles. We kept the sanctions on human rights abuses. We kept the sanctions on their transfer of weapons to Yemen. And we raised those sanctions several times. So we object as much as anybody to those activities, but we differ.
The sanctions were phony. The sanctions were not instituted. And the entire deal was bogus. The entire deal was bogus. So they could continue to be poised to effect a nuclear arsenal. But don't worry, we placed some sanctions in place. The problem is whether the Trump administration says so or not straightforwardly, the regime needs to be toppled. The regime needs to be toppled. I know this really upsets the Code Pink Republicans, including one of whom was on Fox and several of whom have columns and websites and so forth. But this regime needs to be toppled. It is a terrorist regime. It has killed American soldiers. It is developing nuclear weapons. It will continue to develop nuclear weapons and ICBMs. The world doesn't end in 5 years or 10 years. This is a regime that will continue to pursue them. Nuclear proliferation. And so the goal is to address that before they have missiles that can hit Chicago and Philadelphia and New York and Washington and Los Angeles and Houston and Dallas and Seattle, and Portland, and Detroit, and Miami, and every major metropolitan area in this country and everything in between and around. That's the point. I'll be right back. Do any of the CNN and MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, CBS, ABC, NBC, and their ilk, do any of the so-called reporters for any of these entities believe that John Kerry should be investigated for colluding with the Iranians? Do they? Investigated by committees of Congress, foreign affairs and intelligence committees? I mean, ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump Jr. has been brutally attacked for having a meeting with some Russians, of which nothing came of it. Here we have a former Secretary of State, under the former President of the United States, actually negotiating with the former foreign minister of an enemy state, negotiating behind the back of the existing administration. Now, what's worse when it comes to the United States? What's worse when it comes to basic ethics? John Kerry conducting a rogue foreign policy, interfering with the decisions of the current administration, or Don Jr. having a meeting with some Russians of which nothing came from the meeting. He was going to perhaps get some information, which they didn't have. And we have heard all along On and on and on. Don Jr., Don Jr. this, Don Jr. that. Poor Don Jr., I'll tell you what. There he is, colluding with the Russians. There it is, he's colluding. He ought to be indicted. Indicted for what? Meanwhile, there's John Kerry. Big, dumb John Kerry, who already sold out the country with the Iran deal. Circling back. I think I had 2 or 3 meetings. Well, you told Hugh Hewitt it was 3 or 4. Yeah, who can count? Who can count? Well, was it 2 meetings, 3 meetings for? There, Mr. Mueller. You can investigate him. Get him for perjury and false statements. These people are never investigated. They never have criminal statutes overhanging them. Ever. So here we have a meeting. 1, 2, 3, at least 4, who the hell knows how many, between John Kerry and a surrogate for the Iranian Islamo-Nazi regime. A sworn enemy of the United States that wants to build nuclear warheads that can hit our cities. Not some Iranian lawyer. And nothing. Zippo. It's absolutely incredible. It's like Joe Biden's son. And I think it's John Kerry's stepson, Heinz. Doing all kinds of business with the communist government of China. Nobody cares. Nobody blinks an eye. Oh, Joe Biden, he should be the next nominee for the Democrat Party for President of the United States. The only guy dumber than Kerry is Joe Biden. It's a room full of stupid. Oh, that's okay. No problem. At least it's not the Russians. And I take a back seat to nobody on Vladimir Putin and the Russians and the threat they pose for this country. And they do. Which is what makes this so crazy. Logan Act. Oh, the Logan Act. Logan Act. No big deal. Mike Flynn, yeah, get him with the Logan Act. Don Jr. has turns out to be a pointless meeting with a few Russians. Look at that. He had meetings with Russians. Oh, yeah, look at that. Meetings with Russians. As if he agreed to give 20% of our uranium, control over our uranium to Putin. Oh, no, that's Hillary. Oh, forget it. Shh, hush, hush. So John Kerry undermining the current Secretary of State. John Kerry undermining the President of the United States. Directly, repeatedly, negotiating with the Iranians. Caught red-handed, so to speak. Stupidly. Confessing. Anybody care? I'll be right back. Okay, let's see who's out there who would like to chat. Phone lines are full as usual. Here we go. Krista, Folsom, Louisiana, on the Mark Levin app. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Levin. It is a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
I was just calling to say what I don't understand about what Kerry is doing and why people aren't stopping him is what incentive would Iran have to sit down and speak with Donald Trump if John Kerry is still running over there saying, what do you need to talk to us? We'll do anything, please, just like they did with the initial negotiations. They gave them everything, kept nothing back, and claimed it as a victory.
You're exactly right. And I'll tell you what else Kerry's doing over there, which is why he needs to be yanked in front of Congress and put under oath. He's telling the Iranians, I have no question about this, just wait out Trump, that we're going to take out Trump, that we, the American people, think he's a clown, that the media think he's a clown, that the Democrats think he's a clown, that half the Republicans think he's a clown. And we're gonna defeat them in the midterm election. We're gonna force him out, and if we don't force him out, we'll make sure he's so badly crippled and handicapped that he can't possibly win re-election. So wait him out. I am telling you, this man needs to be put under oath and asked exactly what took place. I mean, if he had a meeting with the Russians and it turned out to be nothing, he damn well would be indicted by now. This guy has been working with the Iranians behind the back of this administration. That is a big deal. And thank you, Krista, for your excellent points. I appreciate it. Let's continue. Drew, Monterey, California, the great KSFO. Go.
Hey, thank you, sir. I got to disagree with you. I see Kerry as more of a Neville Chamberlain than a Benedict Arnold. You know, he's more buffoonish like Neville Chamberlain. And I wonder who's asked him to do this, you know, because it sounds to me, the way he's speaking...
So you don't think he's a turncoat? You just think he's buffoonish?
Oh, no. Absolutely, I think he's a turncoat, and that's what I was about to say. It seems to me
Neville Chamberlain wasn't a turncoat. He didn't join Hitler, you know. Benedict Arnold actually was, and he joined the monarchy.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me Kerry's more acting as a consultant to the Iranians rather than representing America. And that's what you just said, basically, that he's telling them what to do to get exactly what they want. He's not negotiating what we need for us.
John Kerry represents the hard left and the deep state, as we call it, the administrative state over at the State Department. And you remember, I think it was 1970, I think it was actually 71, his testimony in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee with Fulbright, right, where he trashed the American soldiers in Vietnam. And he also went around the back of our government and dealt with the Vietnamese and the Viet Cong. You remember all that?
I was before my time, but I did see that, yes, I know.
All right, my friend, I appreciate your call. I don't know, are we even able to pull up that audio at this point, Mr. Producer? I don't mean to throw you a knuckleball. We'll take a look at the break. Let us continue. Bruce, St. Pete, Florida, XM Satellite, go.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for taking my call. You and I have spoken many times before. Quickly to the point. Quick point. Donald Trump, actually Pompeo over at State Department, can do one action unilaterally immediately. Revoke John Kerry's passport. And they should also do this for any of these other jokers from previous administrations who are illegally engaging in foreign policy and undermining the United States. Very simple action.
And you'd see how fast the media would come to the defense. I'm just pointing out to the defense of John Kerry. And the media have exposed themselves time and time and time and time again. They don't support a free press. They support the ideological left. They use the platforms of a free press, the protections of a free press, of which they have had nothing to strengthen. They've done nothing to strengthen them in order to advance their cause. All right, Bruce, I appreciate your call. We'll be right back.
They told the stories of times that they had personally raped, cut off ears, cut off heads, taped wires from portable telephones to human genitals and turned up the power.
There is John D. Kerry, 1971, I recall, in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee with a broad character assassination of Vietnam soldiers. American soldiers in Vietnam, I should say. And he also colluded with the North Koreans and the Vietnamese. So he's got a pattern here. You know, I watched I wouldn't call it a documentary, but a historical program, and not too long ago. And the program was about the 10 biggest mass murders in world history. The 10 biggest mass murders in world history. Do you know who the biggest one, Mr. Producer, was? Genghis Khan. That is, Genghis Khan. And I want you to think about this, folks. No guns, no gunpowder. He killed 9% of the world's population. Can you believe that, Mr. Producer? He killed 9% of the world's population. enormous. All on horseback, with arrows, with spears, with swords, with knives. Pillaged, pillaged, pillaged as he conquered so much of the earth, the planet Earth. It's absolutely incredible. It's sickening, obviously, but it's incredible. It's amazing. Also, who is remembered throughout history? Some people who've done great things, but so many people who've done horrible things, if you think about it. Let us go to Sam, Akron, Ohio, on Sirius Satellite. Go.
Hello, Dr. Levine. It's been a while. I spoke to you a couple of months ago. How are you?
Good. Thank you, sir.
Great. Kerry is useless. He is not supposed to be doing what he's doing right now. He is not part of this administration. He's just trying to make himself relevant. That's all it is. Ignore him. Please, just ignore him.
No, I can't ignore somebody who undermines the existing administration in such a fundamental way.
That PLO office, thank God Trump closed it. I spoke to you about this a couple of months ago. It was a great move. The next step he has to do is remove the Palestinian Authority from the West Bank and allow the Palestinians... All
right. The president's not going to remove them from Judea or Samaria. He doesn't even have the power to do that.
Well, the best thing to do is not support them. The UNRWA, when they stop supporting...
Well, he just defunded that. He just cut our funds to the UNRWA.
Okay, that's slowly, you got to strangle them. That's all.
Well, I don't know what else he can do. He's cut those funds. We've cut American tax dollars going to the subsidizing of terrorists over there. All this funding was going on. He just shut the PLO office. He's working very, very closely with Israeli intelligence and military, unlike the Obama administration, which undermined them. He has supported their efforts publicly. He cut the Iran deal. He's moved the embassy. I mean, it's not he has to do this, he has to do that. We need to sit back and just look and say what he's done is absolutely remarkable and incredibly courageous.
You remember Abbas said when he moved the embassy to Jerusalem, there's going to be violence and street violence. Did anything happen? Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Nobody's listening to these people anymore. The Palestinians want peace. They want to raise their kids. They want to educate their kids. That's all they want. You want to put us with Jordan? We'll go with Jordan. Put us with Israel? We'll go with Israel. Just don't leave these animals.
Now, are you Palestinian?
I am Palestinian. I was born
and you know what crooks run these damn governments over there.
I could tell you stories because I've lived there for over 10 years and I couldn't handle it, so I came back here. Okay, That's how bad it was. These animals since the 19... You know this as well as I do. How much money have they raised since the 1990s over there?
Well, I don't know.
Billions. Where has that money gone, Dr. Levine?
You're quite right. Well, Sam, you're a good man. You really are. And I appreciate it. The Palestinian people are being brutalized by Hamas, by Fatah, the PLA, if you prefer. We'll be right back.